Honorable Minister of State for Housing, Industries, Social Justice and Environment, Government of Maharashtra, Shri Sachin Mohan Ahir, who's expected at about 10:45 a.m. Mr. Arun Nanda, Director, Mahindra & Mahindra. Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Chairman and Managing Director for Hiranandani Constructions. Mr. Lalit Kumar Jain, CMD, Kumar Urban Development Limited and President, CREDAI. Mr. Alan Collette, RICS President-elect and Chairman of Allsop Presidential Investment Management. Friends from the industry and press, respected ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to this RICS conference on Transforming the Indian Real Estate Landscape 2020, which is about winning consumers, investors, and regulators. Before I talk a little bit about the context to this conference, I'd like to take the opportunity to brief those of you who may not be aware of the RICS a little bit about the background of the RICS. Set up in 1868, RICS is a not-for-profit royal charter body headquartered in London. The RICS is the world's leading professional body for qualifications and standards in the real estate and construction sector, with 170,000 members spread across 146 countries across the globe. Our endeavor is to establish the RICS qualification as the benchmark professional qualification for the real estate and construction sector, like it is in other parts of the world. Our endeavor is also to create a more transparent and professional industry and try and institutionalize standards and best practices across a number of different areas, including valuations, code of measurement, brokerage standards, construction standards, facilities management standards, project management standards, off-site industrialized mass housing techniques, building information modeling standards, sustainability, to name just a few. RICS also expects to play a key role in education and capacity building by training professionals in India on global best practices. Now, just a little bit of a background on the context of the conference. In a country like India, where there is a shortfall of close to 27 million residential units, and where we are likely to witness huge amounts of urbanization, wherein we'll see close to 270 million people moving to the cities in the next 15 to 20 years, with an increasingly affluent middle class and with more disposable income, there is never likely to be a scenario that there is going to be a shortage of demand for housing in this country. Yet we find that since 2008, typical real estate cycles, which used to be 6 to 7 years between the market peaking and the market bottoming out, has drastically reduced to about 18 months. And we see a lot more volatility now in the markets than ever before. It is not that there isn't demand, but I see a lot more execution challenges and risks which are making lenders, regulators, and consumers slightly wary of the real estate sector. And we're seeing periods of market slowdown, possibly like the one we're witnessing now. And of course, Mr. Hiranandani has a different view that it is all still very good, even currently in the sector. Built environment comprising of construction and real estate activities accounts for 17.5% of the GDP as of 2009-10. And this sector employs close to 50 million people, the second largest after agriculture. And yet the industry does not have industry status, and that impacts access to credit. There are also a number of other attributes of the Indian real estate industry which are worth mentioning, and I'm outlining some challenges and a roadmap of some aspects that need to be addressed by the industry sooner rather than later. Whenever property is transacted, the size of the actual underlying property is an important determinant of price. As a result, accuracy of size measurements is crucial in facilitating an honest property transaction. And unfortunately in India, we do not have a standard code of measurement, and that would ensure all industry participants practice and advocate its usage, resulting in accurate calculations and disclosures, leading to fair and transparent transactions, which in turn will instill greater public trust and confidence in the property market. The RICS Code of Measuring Practice is one such internationally advocated and accepted measurement standard. And my plea to the industry will be that rather than reinvent the wheel, I'd urge that the government and the developers associations, including CREDAI, consider their members following this code of conduct with a view to bring in transparency in real estate transactions. I did get some feedback from Mr. Jain and Mr. Hiranandani in the morning that any standard that is launched has to be locally relevant. And obviously, what we are endeavoring to do is try and seek views from the industry, including CREDAI and all other trade bodies, to make sure that what we launch is locally relevant. The second part is about real estate agents, and obviously they're the most important touch point for consumers who are looking for trustworthy and fair advice on buying property, especially when a majority of customers put in their lives' earnings into buying a house. Considering the quantum of brokers in the country, this task of making agents more professional would need to be exercised by broker associations, while the real estate companies could also exercise some control on brokers attached with them through the enforcement of brokerage standards. And I must highlight that we'll be requesting the Honorable Minister and the dignitaries present on the stage to release the RICS Global Real Estate Brokerage Standards, which is a clear set of guidelines for brokers to operate towards. The other aspect, I'm sure this is very close to CREDA and, and all other developers, the need for streamlining building approvals. Traditionally, most of the real estate activity has been funded by customer advances from pre-sale of projects, which are invariably sold to customers, not necessarily always having all the necessary approvals. And brokers sometimes mislead customers into believing that they will, get possession in 24 to 36 months, which is a little far from reality in some cases. The other aspect that I'd like to highlight is that while I agree with this point of view that developers are the aggrieved parties as they have to go through a spate of about 40 to 50 approvals and a lot of red tapeism which causes delays which has to be streamlined. But the reality is also the fact that this is a known part of real estate, and it does take, we do know that it takes a fair amount of time to get these approvals. So I think it's just important that from the point of view of consumers, that developers are upfront and say that, this is what it typically takes for approvals to come through, and that the typical, this is factored in when a commitment is made, and this is an important aspect that I wanted to highlight. The other part, that I wanted to talk about was the need for collateral risk management tools. All lenders would agree that lending or extending credit to the real estate sector comes with its own unique set of challenges as compared to lending to some of the other sectors in the economy. The issues related to management of collateral risk in real estate lending have always made the central bank jittery and resulted in a number of punitive policy measures, such as increasing risk weightage of commercial real estate loans whenever the interest rates have moved up in line with RBI's tightening monetary policy stance due to inflationary pressures in the broader economy. Existing provisioning norms for commercial real estate loans require banks and financial institutions to set aside 2.5 to 5 times more capital as compared to some of the other sectors in the economy. Moreover, the perception of the real estate sector as being less creditworthy, coupled with the high cost of capital, has restricted the flow of bank lending to the sector over the last year or so. One of the most important aspects of collateral risk management in real estate involves the issue of standardized and reliable real estate valuation practices. I believe lenders and investors alike would appreciate some form of standardization in valuation practice, which can bring in much needed transparency and stability to the real estate markets. There have been widespread reports highlighting inconsistent property valuations, especially in valuation of land, which stress the need for standardization in valuation practice and risk assessment techniques. RICS seeks to play a key role by encouraging the adoption and institutionalization of IVS-compliant valuation standards and the RICS Red Book, which is considered the gold standard of valuation practice worldwide. The RICS Red Book produces localized standards in different countries for different applications, including valuations for bank lending, taxation purposes, financial reporting, IPOs, mergers and acquisitions, and provides guidance across different asset classes. Lenders and investors often rue the unavailability of accurate property price and market valuation data as the biggest stumbling blocks to provide much needed capital to the sector. The importance of real estate price indices cannot be stressed enough for the stability of real estate markets and assessing financial stability of the sector. The role of collateral risk management tools in mitigating collateral risk for lending to the real estate sector, including the need for standardized valuation practices, availability of reliable data for making informed lending decisions, amongst others, cannot be stressed enough. Then there is a need for bringing in best practices in construction. Despite a strong growth, the construction industry continues to be riddled with impending challenges pertaining to problems of high fragmentation, low productivity, poor quality, and lack of standards. Most projects are completed over budget, take too long to construct, and include disputes that may need to be resolved by legal means or arbitration. Awareness of internationally recognized best practices across disciplines such as construction standards, quality safeguards and guarantees, design and technology, green environment and sustainability will all contribute to the developers gearing up to manage larger size projects than they've historically been exposed to. To give an example, for the first time, quantity surveyors, clients, and the design team will have a tool for proper cost control during the various stages of a building's life, which includes design, construction, and occupation, in the form of new rules of measurement, a suite of documents and standards issued by the RICS to provide a standard set of measurement rules. They will provide best practice guidance to those involved in the cost management of construction projects worldwide. By measuring in a standard way, we will be able to compare costs with greater certainty, as the basis for comparison would be exactly the same. I think it's important to highlight the need for industrialized mass housing to address the housing shortfall as well. In a country that has a staggering housing shortfall of nearly 27 million homes and inherent project execution challenges, including shortages in skilled manpower, the current execution capacity based on traditional brick and mortar construction is hugely limited. Housing as an industry is still handcrafted and heavily dependent on manual labor and on-site construction, which leads to large amount of material wastage and labor inefficiency, leaving aside the quality and thermal comfort level. Given this background, RICS launched a revolutionary concrete-based, panel-based mass housing concept known as India Concept House in partnership with Sam Circle Ventures and its partners Kieran Timberlake and Project Well, which is conceived as both a dwelling unit for inhabitation and as a process by which homes are produced through a managed supply chain. ICH has been developed with the objective of bringing standardization, principle of supply chain, and assembly line production to construct houses. We envisage that ICH and other similar technologies, which could provide a scalable quality house ranging from 248 square feet to 1,000 square feet, can be delivered in 4 to 6 weeks' time, costing in the range of about 1,000 to 1,200 rupees per square foot, and could help address the huge housing shortage. As per the RICS research report on real estate and construction professionals in India by 2020, India's population is estimated to increase to 1.38 billion, with 500 million people, which is 36% of the urban population, which is estimated to generate unprecedented demand for quality real estate and infrastructure. This will lead to a whopping 95 billion square feet of potential demand of real estate space across residential, retail, commercial, industrial, and civic amenities over 2010 to 2020. This would mean an average demand of about 8.7 billion square feet that potentially needs to be built every year. There is a demand-supply gap in the range of about 82 to 86% in the core profession group comprising of civil engineers, architects, and planners, which are the foundation of technical skills. To deliver potential real estate space and planned infrastructure, India would need nearly 4 million civil engineers, 396,000 architects, 119,000 planners over the next decade. However, the corresponding average supply available is only 642,000 civil engineers, 65,000 architects, and 18,000 planners. A sustained period of shortfall in annual supply, coupled with an increasing year-on-year demand, could result in a cumulative demand of nearly 45 million core professionals over 2010 to 20, with a cumulative demand-supply gap of approximately 44 million core professionals over the same period. Given that the industry is already beginning to be impacted by a demand-supply mismatch, the projected shortage of various built environment professionals becomes a cause for significant concern as it threatens the sustainability of high-growth sectors of real estate, construction, and infrastructure. Given that the state of the industry today, it also becomes a tough ask to sift out the so-called black sheep from the flock and ensure that the industry works with people who possess a certain level of knowledge, experience, and competence. This establishes the precedent for ensuring a high degree of professionalism in the realty sector, as is seen in several other professions like accountancy and medicine, which are large international multidisciplinary practices highlighting consistency of service and culture. To enable such a transition to take place within the industry, real estate and construction organizations need to develop and extend to staff the principle of recognition through professional qualifications. To draw parallels to accounting in India, chartered accountants are regulated by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. ICAI ensures that accountants who possess a certain minimal level of competence, gauge through a 3-level examination and months of rigorous training, are only awarded the well-established title chartered accountant. The CA designation or equivalents such as FCA, AICWA, FICWA, CMA are therefore respected as a mark above the rest in the accounting profession. A similar approach, if followed in the Indian property sector, like it is in other parts of the world, will enrich the industry with a certain segment of people who already possess or have worked towards attaining a minimal level of competence, which would be reflected in their professional qualifications. This shift will not only elevate the level of expertise present in the Indian industry, but will also give an opportunity for people working in these sectors to take pride in their profession, much like a doctor or engineer would. While this concept is still to pick up in India, Such qualifications are well recognized in the global built environment, so much so that quality-cautious employers demand these credentials when hiring skilled and specialized professionals who are committed to professional excellence. In such a scenario, professional bodies such as the RICS become all the more relevant as they provide property professionals with a chartered qualification in the form of globally recognized designations, MRICS and FRICS, which equip them with the technical knowledge, extend continuous learning and development opportunities, and through regular monitoring, and also ensure a strict code of ethical conduct is adhered to at all times. I'd like to also kind of make a small reference to the National Skills Development Corporation's initiative to set up a Sector Skills Council for the real estate and construction industry, which I think is an excellent initiative to streamline certifications and qualifications, developing national occupational standards for different trades and professions, and identifying and funding large-scale training initiatives to address the huge skills gap of unskilled, semi-skilled, and skilled professionals in an excellent and skilled professionals, which is an excellent initiative which has to be lauded. And such initiatives will go a long way in addressing some of the challenges and make this industry more professional. In the backdrop of such pertinent issues, there is a crying need for having in place a regulatory body which would regulate property development and transactions to protect consumer interest and to provide recourse in case of anomalies. The government has also put forward a significant regulatory measure which includes the Draft Real Estate Regulation and Development Bill 2011, which seeks to establish a regulatory oversight mechanism to enforce disclosure, fair practice and accountability norms in the real estate sector, and to provide adjudication machinery for speedy dispute redressal. However, whether or not the proposed regulation bill will turn out to be the magic wand remains to be seen. I'm sure there is a different point of view in the developer community, and I respect that point of view, but the idea of the bill providing a consumer redress mechanism is something that I think is a good step for the industry and a step in the right direction. I do feel that the time is ripe for the sector to completely revamp its image to regain confidence of consumers, investors, occupiers, and regulators to chart out a roadmap for year 2020 and create a strong and vibrant real estate ecosystem. As an industry, we do need to respond, reform, and regulate, and more importantly, deliver projects on time and deliver exceptional customer service, which are areas which the industry has been traditionally found wanting in. This conference will seek to debate the key image drivers of real estate from the perspective of all key stakeholders, including consumers, investors, developers, lenders, and the regulators. The discussions will aim to highlight steps that the real estate sector will need to take in order to reduce its risk weightage in the eyes of lenders, improve creditworthiness to mitigate the lack of liquidity, and in the process instilling consumer and investor confidence and to arrive at a common consensus to drive the industry in a better and profitable manner for the benefit of all stakeholders. Improvement is not going to happen on day one, and it will be an evolving process, but unless we have a clear direction, the overall development of the sector can be considerably jeopardized. We may still have a long way to go, but before a lot of these confidence measures, initiatives are implemented. But before that, the conference will endeavor to answer the fundamental question that needs to be answered. What measures or key image drivers does Indian real estate need? And who's going to drive and ensure that these initiatives are institutionalized in India? Thank you so much.